Today on Project HellStang, we're going to start putting all of this suspension back together. A lot of it is just kind of some OEM replacement type stuff, but because we have a Racecraft K member and it does not have a provision for a spring perch, we do need to go to a coilover setup. And so what I ended up picking up was Maxpeedingrods. I ended up picking up a full set of these things for like $260. Shipped back several months ago. I've had these for a while. So kind of my plan is I'm going to put them on the front. Some people seem to have, hit or miss issues with the back ones. And for me, I don't really even think I need to lower the rear end of the car. So I'm probably just going to leave that stock and maybe just replace it. But anyway, we're not doing that today. Today's going to be all front end, right? So we're going to get these things bolted on, kind of see how they work. And we've just got, the factory control arms. I would love to go with the tubular set, but they just weren't in the budget right now. So we're just going to put these back in. The bushings and everything on here look like they've been replaced. They were already really nice. So I just took these things, de-greased them, cleaned them up, sprayed some fresh paint on them, and they look freaking beautiful. And of course, we had new ball joint pressed in. So that's all brand new, threw some paint on all that. And same thing, just, cleaned, painted, all this stuff. For brakes, we're just going with some kind of cheap, factory replacement type stuff. I know these have, the drilled and slotted, but they're just some cheap eBay rotors and pads. Again, I don't really care. I'm not the road racing this car. It's just kind of a long distance cruiser, right? So we're just kind of putting it all back together. Let's see. I do have new tie rod ends, all that stuff, but the tie rods are not going to go on yet because the whole rack is still out of the car, and I don't want to put the rack in yet because I'm going to actually have to weld my motor mounts. Let me show you. So when I bought my K member, I didn't realize that it didn't even have freaking motor mounts. It's made for a motor plate. So I ended up having to order the plates from Racecraft direct, and they were able to send those to me. So I've got to drop the whole motor in, get those welded on and everything. And then once I get it welded, then I can go ahead and stick my rack back on because, they're going to kind of mount here and here. So they're going to be close to where these rubber rack bushings will be, and I don't want to heat them up, mess them up. So I'm going to go ahead and do the control arms. We'll get the whole suspension on just without the tie rods for now. At least that way we can get the car back on the ground. And then the hope is this weekend we can stab that motor in here and then get all that stuff welded and then kind of finish doing all the assembly. Now, if you fellas watched the last video, we ended up tried to put on some Maxpeedingrods caster camber plates. And I successfully got them installed. They got 4 bolts. They're pretty sweet. If you're going to have like a stock style suspension strut deal, then those are great. And they're like $40. They're super cheap. But after I drilled the freaking holes, got them installed, I ended up realizing they're not going to work for our application. And the reason is that the Maxpeedingrods Coilovers are actually a bit shorter. So when I first got these in the mail, I was looking at these bad boys and I was like, okay, it's got caster adjustment, but no camber. So I was like, well, no problem. I went on Maxpeedingrods' website and they sell these caster camber plates that are for 94 to 04 Mustangs. But if we look at it, you can see, and actually if we kind of line that up, something like that. Look at how much longer this is, right? So we would need this strut here to be 3, 4, well, probably 4 or 5 inches longer to be able to come out of the top of here and be able to get a nut on top, right? So that's just their design, right? They just got a shorter thing. You can see on this bottom plate that it's recessed down into it, right? So makes it very short. So that's fine, but kind of sucks we don't have the camber adjustment except for the factory plates. And I did already go and, I'd already removed these a while ago. So since it looks like I'm stuck with them, I threw some fresh paint on them. It was a bummer. I talked to Maxpeedingrods and they didn't really have any idea, so, but yeah, I don't think, so anyway, with these coilovers, this is it. You're stuck with just some caster adjustment. The factory camber is all you can do. These things just unfortunately don't work. Otherwise, this was a pretty nice piece and everything, which the only real bummer, I can return these, no big deal, but the bummer is I freaking already drilled the hole for the 4th mount, and I'm not going to be using that because those are just 3 bolt mounts. Now, something I've already heard with these Maxpeedingrod front coilovers is that I think you have to kind of cut or trim this little tab that sticks out here. Otherwise, the factory, the big head of the factory bolt or nut won't fit. So I'm going to go get my hardware in a second and just double check that. If that's the case, I'm just going to go ahead and notch that out right now while it's off the car, right? It'll just be easier. So we'll get that all notched out, maybe throw some paint on it or something, and then put it back on. These things, I thought they were supposed to be like gold, but it's more of like a yellow. I mean, not like I care, right? It's going to be covered up by the wheel and stuff. But anyway, again, for $260, I mean, come on. You know, I had to have a coilover for that K-member, so I didn't want to spend a ton of money. And a lot of the reviews, it seems like the fronts are fine. It's just the rears have some kind of issue with the strut that they give you being too short. And then so a lot of guys get a longer strut. I can't remember what it's from. I don't know, like a Suzuki Sidekick or something, or like a Tracker strut is like the right length. So maybe I'll do something like that, but we'll see. I'm not too worried about lowering the back. I just wanted the front did have a huge gap. So I would like to lower that down a little bit, and then hopefully it still drives halfway decent, right? But they are like 24-way adjustable or something like that too. All right, suspicions are confirmed. So the internet did not lie. So you can see, well, now you can see. So the bolt won't even go all the way down because it's hitting just this little piece. So basically from about here, we're just going to notch it flat. Should be real easy. This is steel or aluminum, but we'll see. We'll do it. Throw some paint on it. Should be good to go. Same thing. So both sides of the bottom, you just need this to be removed, cut off. And then you should be good to go. All right, so just to make it easier, I just went ahead and spun these things off. It's super easy. You just kind of loosen these. The one was already loose. I didn't really have to do anything, but, you know, it comes with these little bad boys. You just, you know, do the thing, easy peasy. But what I'm going to do, because I don't know, because I'm kind of worried about it, a little bit anal about it, once we get these things cut, I'm going to put a whole bunch of anti-seize. I'll slather that on all over here. So my understanding, this is the first set of coilovers that I've ever personally owned. I've installed them before, but the way you want to put these on is, you know, well, they're already good to go the way they are, right? You shouldn't have to adjust anything, but this is, you know, you basically just want to have a little bit of preload on your spring, and then the way that you actually lower or raise the car is through this bottom part, right? Spinning up or down. So, you know, the spring stays, you don't mess with this, you know, because you want to have tension on the spring, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then this is what you actually move. So I'm just going to give it a shot, trying to have it, you know, installed how it is, and then hopefully it's not, you know, super low. We'll see. But anyway, let's get to cutting. I got to tell you guys, if you don't have 2 angle grinders, boy, you got to get it, because it's so much nicer just be able to cut and grind just, you know, without having to freaking change your bit and all that crap. What a pain in the butt. But these things are good to go. Now I'm just going to take them. These are steel for sure. So we're going to go ahead and we'll throw some paint on them and let those dry, and then we can might just paint this whole stupid thing black. But anyway, we're just going to go ahead and we'll start putting on the control arms, all that stuff, while these get painted up. All right, so the next little snafu I'm running into right now is, it looks like the control arm, you know, it does slide in there. That's cool. But I think probably maybe it's because of the powder coat on this Racecraft K-member. The bolts don't, you know, totally slide through, at least not very easily. So I'm just going to take my unibit and we're just going to run that through real quick just to give it, you know, an extra couple millimeters, and then that way the bolts can slide through. Otherwise, we're going to have a hell of a time trying to, you know, beat the bolts in there. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll see if we can get this thing tossed up in there. All right, so we got the control arms on both sides. They're all completely tight, so that's good to go. I think next thing I need to do is I need to finish getting the sway bar end link out of the way. So I got it, you know, from the bottom, but we got a new one we're going to put on, so I got to get that blasted off. And let me show you guys what I bought. So for the front kind of rebuild kit, I bought this whole kit, and it was only $60. I think I got the link down below. I think I got it from Amazon, but it was, you know, sway bar end links, inner and outer tie rods. You got the boots, you know, new boots, and then the ball joints for $60. I mean, for both sides, it's freaking super cheap. And again, look, come on, this is not, you know, you're not buying Moog quality stuff, but for a project car like this thing's going to see 3,000 miles a year. And that's just the power tour, right? After that, it's just car shows, low mile stuff. So who cares? If this stuff lasts 5 years, 15, 20,000 miles, I mean, that's probably longer than I'll even own the car, right? So it'll be just fine. If it was a daily driver, spend the money. But stuff like this, these project cars, man, you're not seeing a lot of use. You know, let's be realistic. All right, so I did get the sway bar end link all off. It was pretty easy. I just took some vice grips to hold the, this part, and then it was a 15 millimeter bolt up on top to get it out. So I got the new one already kind of, well, it's just in place. It's not fully installed. So I just got it loose just in case we might have to take that off still, you know, to be able to manipulate this up and down, to get on the ball joint, to get on the shock, all that stuff. So I got to do the other side. And what are we going to do next? Then we'll probably go and drop in our shock. So maybe what we'll do right now, I did get these bad boys painted yesterday, these bottoms. So we could probably take these now and go ahead and get these installed back onto that whole, coilover strut little assembly. So like I mentioned too, when I go ahead and put these things back on right now, I am going to put a whole bunch of anti-seize just for future, hopefully make it easier in the future. I don't want to take these apart, so I'm just going to put it basically on this part, and I think that'll be fine. So I'm going to do that right now, and then we can probably bolt these in from up top, start getting the bolts going and start putting all this assembly together. All right, so you can see too yesterday where we had to cut, kind of cut this. So now we're going to have enough room, hopefully, for our bolt, our big bolt and nut to fit on here. So just a quick little choppy chop on each side of the bottom. And then I just threw some paint on them, just so they're painted, protected, all that good stuff. And then plus they don't have that ridiculous looking yellow anymore. Now it's just kind of yellow in this sort of gold color, but it's still cool. And actually, I was looking yesterday. I wanted to tell you guys. So I thought I paid $260 for these things. And I think that was kind of the normal price when I bought these 6 months ago. But I think I had some kind of coupon code, and I only paid $224 for the full set of these coilovers. So I mean, it's super cheap. I mean, it's like less than the cost of some iBox springs. You can get a full coilover set. So pretty amazing, But anyway, we'll see how they work, in the next month or two when we get the car back on the road. But, so far I like what I'm seeing, so we'll see how they hold up. All right, so since I originally took off these plates because I thought I was going to use the caster camber plates and I couldn't, I'm going to go ahead and put my pop rivets back in place on both sides. So just use my little pop rivet gun here I got off Amazon, link in description below, and then some rivets. So we'll get that riveted in place, then we can go ahead and feed our coilover up top. And so these are left and right directional, so you want to make sure that they go like this. So this is the passenger side, and then you can see that way we have the camber, adjustment up and down. So the only thing we'll be losing is we won't have any caster adjustment, but usually the camber is more important. Anyway. All right, so we got both of these dudes in there. So you can see this is where your camber adjustment will be. Loosen these bad boys, move back and forth. So got those in. They're just hand tight. So at this point, this is what it looks like. We got our whole little deal. I've still got to put back on the knuckle. So the knuckle is what we're going to do next. We'll probably start out just getting some bolts through and then get started on the ball joint, get all that stuff all tightened, and then we can start putting the brakes back together. So for tightening, I'm starting first with this ball joint bolt. So this is a 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter, and it calls for like something like 100 to 120 foot-pounds. So a lot of torque on this bad boy. It's kind of hard to get in there because you got the shock in the way and stuff. So we're gonna get that tightened down, and then next we'll move on to these bolts. These bad boys I think are also pretty high, 85 foot-pounds, something like that. And then finally we'll tighten these guys up, which I think these aren't very high, like 40, 50 pounds, something like that. And then what's next? Then we got to put in that little wheel speed sensor somewhere, get that thing in there, and then start putting the brakes back together. All right, bad boys are torqued all down, and don't forget to put your little cotter pin in on each side. Now we can tighten these bad boys. For these coilover bolts, or strut bolts, it's a 21 and a 22 millimeter. So I just blasted those on with my impact, and we're good to go. Now what we got to do is we can go ahead and connect up our little wheel speed sensor. This might be part of the ABS thing too. I might put something on here. This thing was hard as hell to get out of here, so maybe I'll put some anti-seize, just a tiny amount, because I don't want it to get on the sensor. But that'll slide in. We'll bolt that back on, and there's a bracket that also goes like that, something like that, and then this whole thing kind of comes down, something like that. I don't know, maybe it goes like that. Probably makes more sense like that. So anyway, but yeah, that goes on there somehow. So yeah, something like that. Get that all bolted up. All right, so got these babies all tightened down, got this bracket all tightened down. This bracket does say left hand and right hand on it too, so you know which way it goes. Then you just take your little thing, you loop it, get it in there, get it in there. I've got it popped back in here. I just got to find the bolt that goes to it. Hopefully I didn't lose it somewhere. All right, now we got all this stuff tightened suspension-wise, and we can move on to the brakes. So like I said, we just got some, pretty basic brakes. I mean, they're drilled and slotted, but make no mistake, they're just some super cheap, Chinese brand. I think this brand's called ECCPP. Off eBay, but they have pretty good reviews, and I think I've used them on other cars in the past. So, again, this is fine for what we're doing. We don't need, super crazy high performance. So let's go ahead and start getting our brackets all back on. We got some new hardware, all kinds of good stuff. All right, so we got our bracket all together. Now we're just waiting on brake pads. So the company that I got the rotors from, they ended up sending me the wrong brake pads that are for a Cobra and not for a regular GT or a base with a single piston caliper. So those aren't going to work, so I had to order new ones. They won't be here till tomorrow. So let's switch gears and start working on the rack. Now when I took this rack off the car, this thing was dirty as hell, greasy, 25, almost 30 years of corrosion and stuff all over it. And I just took, my, some Scotch brake pads, some SOS type pads and stuff, brake cleaner, degreaser, all that stuff. And look at this bad boy. It looks almost brand new for probably $10 and a little bit of elbow grease. So pretty stoked about it. Now, what I've got for this is we're going to do a new inner and outer tie rod. So the stuff that I got here, it came from the kit I showed you guys earlier that was $60. Again, pretty awesome. These things even have Zerk fittings on the bottom to be able to put grease in. So that's pretty cool. And then I decided to get fancy, and I bought a whole little kit to actually be able to properly install the boot clamps or whatever. So in the past, I've always just kind of used zip ties or whatever, but I actually bought legit stainless steel fasteners just like OEM. So we're going to be able to get these things on and then never have these stupid things fall off. But my boots are actually in really good shape. So we'll see. If I can get these things off, I might just reuse the stock boots. But there's basically a little clamp right here that we do have to reuse. And then we just got to get this off, get this out of here, get this inner tie rod out, get the new one screwed on. All right, let's go ahead and dig into this, get these things out of here. Now to be able to take off these clamps here, these come off really easy. So all you're going to do is just take a pair of pliers, something you can grab the end of it with, and then just take it and pull it. Yep, see? And then those pop right off. So there's nothing to it getting those off. These came off real easy just with pliers. But you can see, look at, the car drove just fine, went down the highway straight at 80, no problem. But you can still see that, they don't have any in and out play, but this way and stuff, they're just, they're tired and need to be replaced. So get this all replaced. Also, when you're taking off your tie rods and stuff, put a piece of tape around where your nut was and everything. That way you can put the new ones, get them adjusted to about the same length. So that way you can get yourself to the alignment shop without dying. So this bad boy, just, got it off with my big old crescent wrench, got it back on, just, got it pretty tight. Put this little green clip thing back on, don't know what that's for. And now I'm going to put my boot back on, and then we'll put that new clamp on, crimp it with our dude, and then we can do this side. But look at the difference here. I mean, can't even move that thing versus, it's so funny. Things all back on these little boots, and the clamps, they were super easy to use. My clamps were a little bit too long, so I did have to cut the clamps down a little bit. After that, they worked no problem. So this whole rack is ready to go, so we're going to go ahead and put it aside for now until we're ready to get it on. Finally, after days of waiting, the brake pads have finally showed up so we can get this freaking brake job finished. So on the left, we have here the correct pads for a Mustang GT or base, V6, and these are your Cobra pads. So somehow this company sent me the right, rotors, the smaller 10.8-inch rotors for the GT, but they sent me Cobra pads. So if anyone is in need of some Cobra pads, ceramics, just some cheap ones, hit me up. I'll send them to you. Just pay for shipping, a few bucks. But these are going to be the correct pads we've got for our GT. So just to kind of give you guys a side-by-side comparison. So got these, got the brake hardware kit. I think it was like 30 bucks on Amazon. So they're actually Power Stop. I don't know if it's like the aftermarket good company Power Stop or what, if these are just some cheap ones. But anyway, good enough for what we're doing. Let's get them on. Just slide those babies in there. There we go. All right, now, once we got these pads in place, you want to make sure you put a bunch of brake lubricant. So I just got some Ultra Lube. And, I already went and coated all this hardware crap, so it's fully lubed up, baby. And, again, just, where the caliper is going to contact, put some stuff up top, on the edges here, just so when it slides, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So that's good to go. Now I got to take, and we just need to push in this piston. So you can use any kind of clamp. I've got this one that I've used for years. I like it because it's got a little button, so helps get it in place. But we're just going to get that thing smushed down so it's flush, and then we'll be able to put this back on. I probably need to also get this old hardware out of here. Yep. So luckily it moves. That's good. This one already came out. This is the one stupid bolt thing that broke. So that one's fine. So we can actually just slide this little guy in there. But so anyway, I'm going to get all that stuff in. Let's get rolling. All right, so with that little piston out of our way now, see how it's, can't even see it's flush. Now we can go ahead, we're going to replace this hardware. Not that there's maybe even anything wrong with it, but came with my brake pad, so why not stick a new shiny one in there, right? Pop this bad boy out, maybe. help if you had the right tools. Oh, there we go. Something like that. Maybe. There we go. Once you get one side going, and you get the other side. All right. So on this bottom one, I'm going to slide out this pin. Actually, I think it goes from this way. There we go. So again, this one looks pretty good, but you know, we got a brand new one and it's already lubed up. So we're just going to use the brand new one. All right, getting all this stuff lined up, what a pain in the butt, but we got it all done. So again, this is all new hardware for this one, and what was cool is instead of the stupid, like, not hex bits, star bits, they changed these now to hex bits. This is like a 15/16 hex, and then this bad boy's a nice old 10 millimeter instead of that stupid E8, you know, reverse star bit thing. So that's all good to go. So, all right, so brakes are done. Let's go ahead and put the wheel back on. Finally, the time is upon us. We can get this thing on the freaking ground and see what kind of clearance we're dealing with there. Here's what we got, boys. Again, huge gap right now, right? But keep in mind, we got no motor, bros. We got no motor. So once this bad boy gets slapped in there with the transmission, right, and all that stuff, it's going to lower it down. So at this point, I'm not going to mess with adjustment of this at all. We're just going to leave it how it is. Let's get the motor in, then we'll figure all that out later on. All right, so suspension and brakes, check. Got that done. What a pain in the butt. Just getting all that done. Glad it's over with. So car is finally back on the ground, which is excellent news because that means in the next video, we need to get this bad boy off of the engine stand onto the cherry picker. We need to replace the rear main seal and then get the clutch and flywheel bolted on, and we can get that transmission put on. And then we can take this whole unit and try to stab that bad boy in, mount the trans up, see where these engine mounts fall, see if this huge ass oil pan fits, because I got some doubts that it's going to fit. So I'm really worried about that. If that's the case, I do still have the stock pan and stock pickup, so I can swap that out. I hope I don't have to, but if we need to, we'll do it. Get that all welded, and then once we do that, we can put this engine in finally, and then start hooking up the Holly harness, start doing all that stuff. So I would advise, if you're not already subscribed and you don't want to miss the rest of this build, we're finally getting to some of the really, really exciting stuff. You know, engine in, turbo stuff's going to be going on soon, all that good stuff. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Again, we've only got about 2 months left before the first week of June or so, whenever the Hot Rod Power Tour is. So we got to have this thing done. We got to have this thing running and driving, hopefully in the next 4 weeks, because I'm going to need some time to be able to work all the bugs out. You know there's going to be a ton of issues, right? I mean, we basically took this whole freaking car apart. So I'm sure there's going to be problems on problems I'm going to have to go back and fix. Let's just say that. So until next time, we'll catch you guys on the next one.